A lot of Atomic Heart will have you grasping for purchase as it freewheelingly veers from enormous set pieces to endless fetch quests, as critiques of Russian exceptionalism rub up against a protagonist who calls robots fat turds, and a script that seems to have been written with the help of a swearing thesaurus and a mandate that the words crispy and critter have to be said at least once every 5 lines. This is one of the oddest big budget games I've played in a long time, filled with as many good ideas as bad ones, almost like it's been made without a filter. Everything went in. The game's influences are numerous: Westworld, Fallout, Arcane's Prey, but the one that looms above them all is BioShock, and the influence runs deeper than the aesthetic. Combat is built around a plasmid equivalent, several of which are directly lifted from BioShock, while the narrative style of talking heads, audio logs, and companions is straight from the Irrational playbook. Atomic Heart benefits from the tried and tested nature of these techniques, but it suffers from the fact it's so indebted to a very famous, very striking FPS from 16 years ago. Combat features all of the standard weapons, which can be upgraded in satisfying ways. You'd expect, which can be upgraded in satisfying ways, which can't be said for how they feel to use. Combat lacks the heft of its inspiration. Even the electric shock power feels more like giving enemies a tickle. One reason for this is how hard Atomic Heart leans into collecting and crafting. Throughout the game, you're wearing a sentient super glove, and everything you point at will open and goodies will zoom towards you. Remember the scene in Ghostbusters where the library cards start flying out of the drawers? In Atomic Heart, you can do this intentionally and constantly, and so far it hasn't gotten old. In fact, I enjoy it so much, I think opening space cupboards individually in Starfield is going to drive me mad. But using all this junk to painstakingly build and upgrade weapons means most of your equipment and attacks are unimpressive until you can grind enough loot to give them more oomph. In BioShock, when you got more powerful plasmids, the low-tier versions still felt like they had their uses and were viable options to use. In Atomic Heart, I see no point building a new tool or weapon without having the resources to immediately upgrade it several times. The game does help you do this by refunding all resources when deconstructing an item, but the cumbersome interface and tiny icons make this process no pleasure. And most enemies do not demand this flexibility. The combat isn't all bad. Like BioShock, and particularly BioShock Infinite, it lets you pull off some great moves with the abilities, levitating some guys, chain electrocuting a lot of them, and then smashing them into the ground before launching a rocket straight at one of their faces. But like a lot of good things in Atomic Heart, they're brought down by somewhat bad things, like frustrating one-hit kill QTEs littered throughout boss fights. In terms of how you actually navigate this place, Atomic Heart offers one memorable and well-used idea, a viscous goop that your character can swim through in order to move vertically around certain environments. This weird-looking substance snakes around certain locales, often asking you to swim loops high above and provide some magnificent perspectives on these environments. It's a standout idea, both mechanically and visually, and the ability to hop out at any point along the tube lets you get creative with it. Though creativity is rarely needed outside of combat, the missions comprise largely of fetch quests, during which the game commits the cardinal sin of having a protagonist that constantly complains about fetch quests. Atomic Heart has been the subject of recent controversy in the context of the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war, with its developers being Russian and the sources of its funding being questioned. Some critics suggest that Atomic Heart represents Russian soft power, and buying it would be some sort of implicit support for the war. Whatever you can say about the funding, this game is not a propaganda piece. In the same way Fallout embraces atomic age Americana in order to oft savagely critique American capitalism and culture, this is a Russian critique of Russian exceptionalism. The opening hours show the publicly presented grandeur of the Communist Party's propaganda, which then is slowly unraveled. All the hollow spectacle in Atomic Heart is there to be chipped away at to expose the rot underneath. The names of great Russians pop up over and over again in the supporting cast as tribute, and they're used to tell a story of overreaching and ultimately the wider theme of man's inhumanity to man. I can't imagine finishing this game and thinking it's presenting Russia as some wonderland ruled by wise people for the common good. However, that probably makes Atomic Heart seem like a more impressive narrative achievement than it actually is. There are lofty themes here and some memorable story beats, but also a bunch of ridiculous characters and set pieces that come and go in the blink of an eye. I also can't get over the fact that one of your recurring buddies, Granny Zika, looks uncannily like the late Queen of England. Atomic Heart is a surprising, ambitious, deeply flawed game that at times feels close to greatness. It will take your breath away with a set piece 1 minute, then make you spend the next 10 fiddling with an annoying puzzle while the protagonist swears about how annoying this puzzle is. It's unbelievably crass in one breath, then delivers a cogent summary of contemporary issues surrounding AI the next. I have no doubt it'll become some sort of cult classic among a particular type of FPS player. Inspiration is always a double-edged sword because of the comparison it invites, and Atomic Heart has been heavily inspired by the past. What lies beneath its glossy exterior, though, is a sadness about the future of technological servitude it envisions. This game has moments of frustration alongside the wonder, and in some areas pales in comparison to those inspirations, but it is always reaching for the stars. Even if Atomic Heart never quite fully grasps them, that has to count for something.